much, ladies, and thank you for introducing me to do this amazing little inspiration, inspired by the famous speech given by Martin Luther King Jr. I have a dream. We're in a dreamlike state. We're using this as our inspiration to take us away to a far better place than what it feels like sometimes on our day to day in this political climate. It's always important to find ways to de-stress, and this is definitely going to be one of them, remembering the words of unity and togetherness that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke of. We're going to use this as our inspiration to think on those words and de-stress a little bit this afternoon. So what we're going to need is some art supplies. You can join in with crayons, colored pencils, anything you like, but what I'd be using today is a mixture of mixed media. We have some oil pastels, a pencil. I have some white acrylic paint, or you can use white acrylic paint markers. I have a palette on hand to put my paint on. I have some paper towels on hand anytime you use paint. I also have a microfiber cloth to help me blend the oil pastels, and the sketch is super simple. Really is just creating this moon and marking the areas where we have the blending of the colors. So to get started with our sketch, we're going to start with a simple letter C. So in this top left corner, if you can write a letter C, capital C, you can get this crescent moon started. And try your best to form a circle with the curve. And that's why they have an eraser. You can come and with some short strokes, just round off our C. And then we're going to kind of dip it in just slightly. And now we'll just create a smaller letter C for the inside of the crescent moon. And again, try your best. It almost over hangs the first smaller C. And just making sure the inside is round. And to get us started, after our sketch, I'm just going to fill in with some oil pastel. I'm just going to start it off with a base of white. So we're sketching our moon and just giving it a little fill in. Once we're satisfied. Step one, fabulous. So we have some gradient color here, starting from a dark, deep purplish blue, moving down into a lighter blue, lighter purple, and finally a pink. So I'm just going to give some dots on my page here to mark where the transitions are happening so I know about how far down I'll start changing my colors. So there's a good chunk of that dark bluish purple, so I'm just going to give myself about 3-4 fingers from the top for our first dark blue section. So we're just imagining about 3 fingers across. The next, again, and about 3 fingers from that dot going down. We're going to take that measurement all the way down. This is going to be our light blue area. going into our light purple area. And then finally, this bottom part will remain mostly in pink. So to get started, very simple with some oil pastels. They blend pretty easy, but they can be a little messy. So if you want to put some gloves on, or don't really like a mess, you can hold your oil pastel with a napkin. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in with the darkest blue that I have available in my palette. And you also always want to kind of do a little tester, color testing, see which one works a little darker. I like this shade. And we're just going to get started swiping our oil pastel in long strokes, kind of wide, and just being mindful of the dots we created to not really pass that area where I marked too much. So we have ourselves colored in with lots of texture, like so. And this is one of those things where it's just very playful and fun. Nothing's perfect or exact. I'm just placing the color in there. And then since that's my majority of the color, I'm going to come in between some of these blank spaces with this other shade of bluish purple. And just give myself a couple of marks of that. And we're going to bring it down just a hair further. Again, with this darker blue being the majority. And if you're coloring with colored pencils or crayons, you can also hold your crayon or pencil on the side like so, just to cover a bigger distance across your paper. And again, just coming in with this purplish blue, like so. And now I'm going to come in with a little more purple this time. Coming into this section with just a couple of bits of purple. And now adding more of that darkest blue. And we're going to come in with some white. White is going to be blended into this darker color. So I'm just peeling the paper off. And starting to layer over the areas that I want to lighten. And then I'll start bringing only white across these sections first. Really just filling in the page with a thick first layer of white. And I'm going to take that all the way down my page. So we do use a bit of this oil pastel white. But if you're coloring, of course, with colored pencils, you're just going to use a lighter shade of blue as you're coming down, and you're just coloring lightly with light pressure. So that first layer of white is going to make all the difference when blending. Now, oil pastels just have that good quality that you can blend pretty well. So if you try to do the same thing with a crayon, it's not as effective, but it is possible. It doesn't have that super smooth kind of blending that once you kind of come in with the oil pastel, it just kind of blends out real smooth. I'm going to come in now with some light purple, just softly pressing. You don't need much pigment at this point. in these areas that we're trying to create a purple lightness. A little bit goes a long way once you've layered that white on top. And we're just going to come down now with some of this lighter blue all the way through. And kind of bring that purplish bit up throughout. And now our darkest blue. Notice how there's a lot more white showing than the top half. And we can always add more pigment. It's just harder to take away once you put it on. So at your preference, again, as you can tell, it can get a little messy. You have a paper towel, and we're just going to start buffing and blending the oil pastel. Now, sometimes paper towels can kind of rub off. You're just going to want to get a new clean area and just continue to rub. But this is what I prefer to use. It's just like a cloth. Microfiber cloth is great. This is just a rag kind of have lying around. And it's softer on the hands too. So I'm just going to come in here and swipe left to right. Really blend the color that's already on there. And as you can tell, it starts to really come to life, that sky. And I'm going to avoid the moon as much as possible. And you can turn your page to your comfortability. So this is what we kind of start having. We have these dark blue pigments, some purple, continuing the blue to now this is like a periwinkle lighter purple into some super light blue mixed with white. And finally some light pink. So if you have colored pencils or paint, that's the shades that you're looking for. But again, I'm just working with oil pastels. And now I'm in the process of blending that out. I'm going to have a scrap piece of paper underneath too, because as I blend, I want to take it to the edge of the page. And I do have some excess blending happening, so that'll go on my scrap page. And again, I'm trying to do it across left to right, but I'm trying my best to avoid the lightness of the moon. And continue blending like so. I really want to just keep that moon in that white shade. And if it feels like when you blend, you're not covering your paper enough, you can always just come back in and do a little retouch, refill, darken it up. This is very buildable in layers, like so. And come back in and blend away. Once you have that base pigment on there, if you want texture, you just don't blend as much. I'm going to come around now this moon again, trying my best to keep the moon white. And take your time. This is the fun part. There is no rush. I'm trying to create the strokes of the sky formed in the left to right kind of texture. So I'm just going to try my best to swipe and blend in a left to right direction. And it does start to become a little bit of a workout, but once you see that blending happening, totally worth it. Totally worth it. You see how the sky is now slightly transitioning. Now we're getting to the area where we put that white underneath. And now you'll see the sky literally change color right before your eyes. And we're just using that little bit of pigmented blue to just have that soft kind of sky look. And I want to come in with just a little more white just to add for blending purposes. Just to make it a little more smooth. And I'm just going to come in here with just a hair more purple and a hair more blue. Just to get the color that I am looking for. I want it a little more periwinkle, a little more light lavender. So a little more purple mixed with the white will help us achieve that. And again, this is very buildable. So whatever color we want to create going forward, all we have to do is layer it up. So again, just swiping some purple. And blending away. Perfect. And again, just being mindful of that overhang. Still continuing with that left to right, really creating an atmosphere. I'm just going to continue with just a little more purple. And really focusing on blending. Like so. And you can always layer a little more white. And I'm going to continue. Yeah, just being mindful of the gradient shades. We have that darker blue now fading into that lighter blue purple, and then finally down into the pink. So I just want to buff out anything that looks like too much of a harsh line. Really just pull it all across. Here we go. Whoops. Want to definitely hold on to your paper. And I want to give the pink its own shine. So I want to kind of avoid bringing too much blue into the bottom. I'm going to start off with a little more white. And we'll give the pink some staying power. And just building and layering, adding some more pink there, just to really brighten up that tone. Holding on to the page as best I can. And there we have our pink base. Going to come up with a little more areas of purple. And again, if it doesn't look exactly like your inspiration, that's okay. That's what it's there for inspiration. All right. And I think I'm liking how this looks. So far, this is our base. This is what our inspiration is. This is what we got going on here. I'm going to just darken some of this area up here with some big bold lines. And I'm going to not blend as hard. I'm just going to literally softly just kind of let the lines stick around a little more, just with a soft sweep, like so. So now the next step would be to concentrate on really building some clouds. But there's a little shadow happening with these clouds. And usually when I create the clouds, I'm just coming in with the darker shadowy color underneath. And it starts off in a section of 3. So we do 2 circular type pieces, a top one, and then it kind of just falls out on the side. And so when you blend it, it just naturally starts to form a cloud-like kind of shape. And again, you can blend and add. It really starts with about the 3 pieces into little outside wisps that kind of blend and pull the cloud out. And that's the base of most of the clouds, but of course you can layer it up. And so we're going to start just with around the moon area, just some circular, almost like letter C bits. So I'm just coming around building just with a bunch of letter C's, the shadowy base of a cloud. And I'm just going to come around and just kind of let this shadowy bit kind of fall like so. And then I'll take my blending rag, come in with a circular motion, and with a soft circle, just kind of blend out this darker kind of area forming. Literally watching the clouds kind of come to life. Just gonna press a little firmer in the same areas that I just added some pigment. And again, this is just little C's, being very random, but moving left to right. I'm just creating those little bits of cloud. Now they're not white yet. This is the shadow that's going to lay underneath. And again, I'm just moving my blending in a circle. And I'm not looking for perfection. Clouds aren't perfect. I'm just looking for a little bit of airbrushed quality. Now I'm just going to take a tiny bit of purple down here. So as you can see in my inspiration, this has more of a gray undertone. I'm going to take some purples down here. Again, coming here. Just doing a bunch of letter C's. Coming in with a red. And going in a circle. Really curving out. Kind of pulling out the ends. And curve, curve, curve. Pulling out the ends a little with a little curve, curve, curve. And we'll do some little clouds down here, because why not? Again, circular motion. Circular motion. Circular. Like so. Now I'm going to come in with some gray and create let's try a darker gray. Much better. I'm just going to come in there. Maybe two baby ones over here. And then I'm going to layer a little gray on everything else. Again, just letter C's and working towards the bottom of some of these formations. Just working towards the bottom. Again, some letter C's. And now we blend. Gonna come in again with a little soft circle. I'm not gonna over blend too much because I want that gray to kind of pop up still. Again, just some soft circles, pulling till you see a little cloud form. Again, little circles. Pull that out just a tad. Circles, pull the ends out a bit. Circle. These little wispy guys get a little circle moment. Just blending that out slightly so it's not super harsh line. Perfect. So we have ourselves the base undertone, and now we're going to layer some trusty white. Now it's not going to look super bright white, and we're going to actually put more white acrylic paint on top, so don't worry if it's not super bright once you add the white. But same concept. We're going to do C's all over, and we're going to let the base show through because it is our shadow. So I don't want to cover the whole thing, but I do want to cover the majority of it and allow the color to blend. Same concept, letter C. Leaving the base kind of untouched, really just focusing on putting the majority of the white towards the top. See how the base is not really covered completely. And we're just writing little letter C's all over the place. All over the joint. Getting ready. To dream a big dream. We're almost there. All right. Now we're going to take our time with blending. Slowly, in a soft circular motion. And I mean really soft. Just let those clouds just kind of exist. We don't want to overblend. We want that white to kind of stick around. And again, it is going to mix with that undercolor and it will get brightened by some more acrylic white. But we're just looking mostly for wispy texture. Wispy little texture. I'm starting off with a clean area of my rag too. I'm not using too much blending. Here we go. Amazing. Perfect. Fabulous. Wonderful. Okay. Now we're going to get into the details of it. So for the most part, I'm done with my pastels. I can come back and adjust as needed. I'm going to put those guys away for now. And I'm going to pull out my mop brush. And I have a thin little detail brush lying around somewhere. It's going to help me get those fabulous small details. I have a little palette on the side too to put some white paint to make that pop. But unfortunately, I can't seem to find, whoops, usually, my thin liner brush, so we're going to pull it out. Another one, and another one. So the super thin liner brush is going to help us create some stars and some dots. Perfect. That shall work. And line up some crisper detail work on the moon. And the mop brush is going to help us create some brighter texture on our clouds. So I want to get started with some acrylic white paint. Use an acrylic white marker too, or if you have a Posca marker or paint pen, that will work also. So I'm just going to pull out some of this white, just like so, with a thin liner brush. And we're just going to brighten and crisp up this moon here. So this is the point where we are mixing our media, going from oil pastel to acrylic paint. Again, I'm turning the page to the comfort of my hand. And I'm just layering right over that drawn light, extending the point of the crescent moon just a bit with the paintbrush, using the drawn line as a guide, and layering right over that drawn line, like so. You could add a little water to make it more fluid, but this texture for me is just fine. Gonna come around and right over the drawn line, using it as a guide, just allowing that white acrylic paint to brighten that moon. Just like so. And we're gonna hope that that moon dries on after we put the paint, because we're gonna layer a little bit of the oil pastel over it just to cast a little bit of a shadow. So you don't want to put too much acrylic paint. You want to give it a thin coat so it's not too shiny. Mine is a super crescent moon. The inspiration is a little more classic crescent. But that's the beauty of art. It can be whatever you want it to be. Alrighty, so now we can get a little messy. So I'm gonna tap some, whoop, tap some of the night sky. Teeny tiny little specks all over, especially in the darker area. Just adds to the whimsy and the takeover of the nighttime. When you see the stars popping out in the darker part of the sky, you know nighttime is a coming. I like to do the tapping method from brush to brush just to give me a little more control. We try to splatter different ways, then you get too much paint everywhere. This is just a little more controlled for me. And I'm really taking on that kind of splatter. I'm going to take it into this next purplish layer. And I kind of do this part first because I'm going to have the white pop the clouds a little bit. And it'll cover over any of the speckles I put on top of the clouds. Now I have my mop brush, and I'm just going to kind of softly find the roundness and just press and swipe. Opting for slight curve. When I put this white paint on these clouds, just looking for a curvy landing. I'm gonna tap off some of the excess. I'm gonna dip my brush, tap off some of the excess, and finish just adding slight bits of texture and the pop of white. Right. And now the paint that I put on with the mop brush, I'm just gonna work into slight more curve. Like so. And so we have those clouds, we have the stars. Now we're gonna paint in just some bright stars, and that's gonna be with our thin liner brush and some white acrylic paint. And we're just gonna start off with an X with a line through the center and a line across. So basically like a X and T. I'm just gonna get some more. You can also just put some twinkle stars, groups of 3. Can round out some more of these cloud bits. And kind of soften them. Rounding out these bottom bits and softening them. Pulling them kind of out towards the edge. And rounding this bit out. And softening. Using my finger to kind of tap. Smooth out the paint. And this is something fun that you could just continue to play with, building and kind of curving, tapping that acrylic white over the pastel. Build layers. And just slowly watch it come to life. I'm just going to work this last little bit. And there you have it. This is our inspiration. And this is our dreamy night. And to finish her off, I'm going to take my gray pastel, sign the bottom corner, and there you have our inspiration.